Hi, I guess welcome to episode 37. So I shot a 30-minute episode 36, and then at night loaded it, went to bed, woke up in the morning, had multiple messages from different people that there was no sound. And then I checked to see if I uploaded it correctly, and it turns out I shot the video completely without sound. So that one's just gone. I guess I could have someone write in subtitles off reading my lips or something, but I'm not going to. So I'm just there's gonna be like a lost episode essentially of this. And these aren't rare speeches. I don't really have agendas or schedules or anything like that. I just make them up as I go. So some of the stuff in there is just gonna be lost. But I wanted to shoot another one. And today we had Evelyn come over and Kristen and Sam, and that was a lot of fun. We opened up some gifts. She's so energetic and she's walking around like crazy now. That was a lot of fun. So that was pretty cool. And let's see what else. What else? Oh, so I was looking at a bunch of different stuff on a somewhat related topic, which is very interesting. But I was looking at different writing stuff or thinking about different writing things and realized that when you're reading a book, when you read the first person personal pronoun, it's I and it means someone else. And when they say you, like a choose your own adventure story, they mean yourself, which for some reason just clicked with me. This is probably a week ago with self-talk or affirmations. And a number of years ago, I talked to Shad Helmstetter, who was working on replacing himself. He was a major movement in the self-help field. And I was doing public speaking at the time, looking for something to give speeches on. And we talked about me picking that up, but I didn't. And I tried affirmations really intensely, fairly intensely for like a month and got almost nothing out of them. And it's all like, I am confident, I am confident. And my mind goes, I am confident. No, I'm not. That's bull crap. I'm confident. No, crap. So it never really worked because I always had this reaction in my head. And then I realized that if I'm talking about myself, to myself, the personal pronoun should be second person, so it should be a you, which is weird or interesting. I was just thinking about it with writing stories. And so I'd gotten into this kind of writing slump. I tend to have a lot of self-doubts and hesitation somewhat anyways in life. And then over the last couple of years, all the health stuff has thrown hiccups into a bunch of stuff I've tried to do. So I failed at more stuff in the last 2 years because I couldn't do it than I have in most of the rest of my life. It's been kind of insane. So my self-doubt has gone way up. And even just in writing, I kind of think about, all right, I'm a writer, but then my mind kind of rejects that. I'm not really making money at writing. I haven't really written anything big or super interesting. And I decided to use that on that. So for like a couple of days, for quite a bit during the day, I just said to myself inside my head mostly that you are a writer. And that built up. And then I like compulsively had to write for like 3 days. And it was kind of crazy how much it drove me to do that. I would stop reading. I would like set stuff down from reading to do the writing on those 3 days. And then I stopped because it was kind of crazy, kind of a crazy experience, but extremely interesting. So I'm working on clarifying some of that or working on it. And because there's consequences of saying stuff like that in your head, and I have to think about it, probably significantly over analyzing it. But I've been working on that. And then I kind of want to use the Grateful Dead and Jerry Garcia, Jerry Seinfeld, Stephen King as good models of what I want to be, at least in art, in that they were doing the art they wanted because they really like it, because they really enjoy it. And they didn't really adjust to the market that much. They did what they wanted, the way they wanted to do it, and they happened to end up being successful. In the case of some of them, I mean, they kind of, at certain times, kind of hindered their own success. Now, Jerry Seinfeld became pretty successful pretty quick, pretty young. So that case is a little different. Stephen King took a long, long time to become successful. A lot of rejections in there. And then Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead kind of became successful in spite of themselves. I mean, they shot themselves in the foot kind of repeatedly. And I just watched the documentary over a few days, The Long Strange Trip about the Grateful Dead, which is just extraordinary, pretty awesome. Evelyn watched the first episode a little bit today while she was doing other stuff and playing, and she seems to like the Grateful Dead music. She is, of course, only one, so she likes most any jingle of any sort. But you never know. And those guys they're just interesting models in that way, I think, because at least for the writing, I don't really want to sell out with it. Essentially, I don't want to try to make something that will be commercially successful, since odds of being commercially successful in that way are fairly low anyways. And so I want to make essentially what I want to make. I want to do it because I enjoy it. And I think I kind of had to accept at this point, which only makes sense. Kind of have accepted a long time ago, I guess. They don't really have a hierarchy drive, right? There's a bunch of drives different animals have. Humans have a territory drive, a hierarchy drive, different social drives, sex drive, stimulus drive, exploratory drive. So, like that, climbing hierarchies, climbing ladders is not my main drive. It's not what I like to do. I've been offered a promotion at most of the jobs that I've had, which are quite a few, and I've turned down almost all of them just because I don't like I don't like being in charge of people and telling them what to do very much. I don't really like people being in charge of me either, so it doesn't exactly work out. But I especially don't want to be like stuck in the middle of people that you're trying to not be bad to, you're trying to protect, but people above you are telling you to do bad stuff to the people below you. Like the middle management position is just horrible, and I don't like having to do whatever it takes to climb ladders. I don't like that direction. Or I have a good opportunity to, take over and run Toastmasters organizations, stuff like that. But I also don't want to. I just like being a part of stuff, but I don't want to take over and run stuff in most any way, which to a certain extent I realize I need to and I have to. And I've been hesitant commercially, at least business wise, because there have been several projects I've taken on over the last 2 years where I had to let them go. I had to quit, back out of stuff because I couldn't physically do it because of my health, or I couldn't mentally do it because of my health. But your mind is just the operation of your brain, right? So it's physical on every level. Uh, and I just it's been really disturbing to my self-confidence over these last couple of years, especially in taking on some sort of commitment like that. And that's a big part of why I haven't launched anything in teaching, is because it's like I don't know if I can really show up. I don't know if I can do high quality stuff every day. I don't know how much energy and focus I can really put into it, because if I experience a dip in health, especially, which I have a bunch of times now, I know that can deteriorate very quick for unknown lengths of time. It's just really annoying. And all of that goes back to some of the personal improvement stuff I have to do, which I have to focus on meditation more. That seminar I went to, or that retreat, that 10-day silent retreat, made a huge difference, huge turning point. But if I keep it up, if I do it, even a few minutes a day actually makes a difference. But I think if I do it a lot, I'll see a significant change again, and that'll accumulate over time. I think it'll be accumulative. So I definitely want to play. I want to play with that a little more. And I think a big part is harnessing of all this stuff is harnessing my exploratory drive. I think that's a big part of why I read so much. That's a big part of why I like doing adventures. That's a big part of why I like just doing new things, even if they're not very adventurous. Just doing new things is exploratory. I have that big urge. So if I can transition that exploratory urge into the other stuff I have to do, I think that will help quite a bit. We'll see how it goes. Let's see. I don't really want to rehash what I went over in the last video, because these are what I'm thinking at the moment. But I did say some interesting stuff in the last video, so I'm thinking of it now. And the one was had just had that day, whenever that was that yesterday, something like that, a class with a student from China. It was a new student, and he was pretty advanced. He's like 10, 12, somewhere in there. And he was going over the Dome on the Rock, which is very interesting, kind of an advanced thing to study, the Muslim Jew conflict over Jerusalem and the Dome on the Rock and all this different stuff. And he has no intro to it. China is communist and religion is illegal. And they apparently really don't study religion either. So, I mean, he did not know what Islam was. He didn't know what Hinduism was. He doesn't know what Buddhism is, Taoism, Taoism, Confucianism, Christianity, any of that. I mean, he doesn't know who the Jews are. He doesn't know, right, religions. He just doesn't know religions in general. Didn't really know or understand what religion is. So we worked on a bunch of different stuff, went to a number of different websites and whatnot. And most stuff is blocked. This kid, his parents are doing fairly well financially, so he's like a brand new iMac or iBook Pro, whatever it is. And it was funny because he's just used to using apps. So I had to kind of tell him how to use his Safari Explorer because they don't use it very much because most of the internet's blocked in China. But he can get on and look up pictures on Yahoo. So he can look at the Dome of the Rock, stuff like that. And then they can still get on simple.wikipedia.org, which is really nice because it's at his reading level as well. It's a more simplified version based off basic English, I believe, which is kind of a defunct thing, but still use it in some way apparently. And then as part of that, he was really fun to talk to, and we were going over all sorts of stuff because it was kind of a blank slate as far as religion was concerned. So I had to explain a little bit of everything to get an overall view and then give him the resources to look at more. But we looked up my website too because, why not? We're already looking up stuff, and jeffreyalexandermartin.com. So he's typing this thing in, and he's like halfway through it. He has a Chinese keyboard, so it works different. It takes him a little bit longer. He's like halfway through. Jeffrey Alex is somewhere in there, and he's like, "Holy Jesus Christ!" It's the weirdest thing. I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Holy Jesus Christ! Your name is so long. Your website's so long." And I was like, "Okay." So we get on the website, and he looks at it. We get it working. He starts reading it. All the pictures on my website, my blog, are blocked in China, but they can still read the words. And some of that stuff, he was reading the first lines post, which is over 700 views now, which is really cool, interesting. People love the first line stuff. I gave a speech on it. Some people were really enthusiastic about it. Obviously, some people were enthusiastic about sharing it too, and it is interesting, the different first lines of stuff. Jeff Winston was on the phone with his wife when he died. I could think about that thing I have been thinking about it for years. So excellent first line. Anyways, so after we get everything working and we go over that a little bit, I'm like, so where, Jesus Christ, like, where did you learn that name, Holy Jesus Christ? Like, where did you learn that saying? And he's like, oh, kids at school. So even though he has no idea what Christianity is, doesn't know what Christians are, doesn't know what Catholics or Baptists or Methodists or Protestants, doesn't know any connection with any of the stuff at all. Holy Jesus Christ is kind of like a swear word that kids use normally in school in China. So it's very interesting. And now Christians and Muslims are moving into China in their own ways. China recently started getting their first Muslim terrorist attacks. And then a lot of times, like, Christians will pose as teachers for English, or they will be teachers as English. And then as a side thing, or kind of their main thing, they'll go in and try to convert people, which is pretty dangerous because I don't know exactly what the penalties are for that. But knowing about Tiananmen Square in 1989 can get you put in prison for the rest of your life in China. So trying to convert people to a religion which is illegal, I'm sure can get you some version of some really intense prison/torture stuff. So that's an interesting adventure, which is kind of exciting or fun, weird stuff. But that's how I started off the last video, the lost video, episode 36. So I wanted to hit on it because it was interesting. It definitely was fun. Crazy holiday season. So we have our parties coming up here really soon, tomorrow maybe, something like that. And that'll be interesting. We were watching some Harry Potter movies today because every Harry Potter movie has Christmas in it because they're all 1 year. So I consider them Christmas movies, and we've watched a bunch of other Christmas movies for the season too. My mom doesn't exactly consider them Christmas movies, but I told her to consider them movies with Christmas in them, and she will accept that. So that's kind of funny and interesting. And these books I'm reading the 5 epic fantasy books at the same time, and the collected works of Benjamin Franklin. And I wrote a post on that, and it is so interesting. First of all, just reading a little Benjamin Franklin every day is super interesting. I'm reading it in chronological order. I mean, it's revealing about history, and he's such a crazy guy. I mean, at times he would own the newspaper. He wrote most stuff under a pseudonym, seems like. He would write under a different name some sort of article for the paper that he owned. And then he would write under a different name than that, even attacking the article that he wrote under the paper that he owned, all under different names. Like really weird, crazy stuff. And then the fictional stuff, to read all next to each other, you can compare it so much. It's so interesting. And you can decide what you want to read at a certain time based off feeling, and then try to figure out why you feel like reading it at that time. For instance, Narnia and Harry Potter. A lot of times I feel like reading these when I feel tired, or just when I want to feel comfortable or something kind of predictable, which I think is partially because I know the story, but to a large extent, it's because of the way they're plotted / the style. The style is very comfortable. Like Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, I know the story too, but I don't read this when I want to feel comfortable. It's different because of the style mostly. He writes like a really detailed narrative historian, but it happens to be in a fictional fantasy universe. And I didn't really like the style until I phrased it like that to myself. A detailed narrative historian of a fictional fantasy universe. And then it's excellent because I like narrative history. So in that case, it becomes very good. And I even like fictionalized history. I just hadn't viewed it that way because it's fantasy, and I didn't catch on to the style until now. But now that I'm reading it with that in mind, then it's really excellent writing. And then these other books are really good too. The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, I'm really liking. Dark Ages is different for me by Valerie L. Price. It's that's interesting. I'm going to keep going with it and see how much it surprises me. But let's see, here it is. I'm that far in. You can see the bookmark in there a little bit, and it's interesting. It's got some good stuff to it. It's partially written, or to a large extent, includes quite a bit of omniscient viewpoint, where you can see into everyone's mind. You can read everyone's thoughts at the same time, essentially, which is not extremely popular in writings. It's pretty rare. Generally, third person limited is normal. Character viewpoints, third person limited character viewpoints, those are normal. Third person limited close. First person, like I did this, I did that. That's pretty common now. It's the most natural version. It's becoming more so. The Name of the Wind. This one's a framed story, which is interesting. They lead in from like a third person perspective. Then a guy starts telling his autobiography to someone else from a first person perspective. And that's really cool. That's really interesting. And then I did a frame on one of my short stories that I was an interesting way of writing. There's a lot of stuff I want to explore in writing. And I wrote a recent article about 8 different ideas I have about writing. And the more I view it as an exploration, the more I like it. It's kind of like reading. And a big thing in reading, and people get tattoos of this and whatnot, is to live 1,000 lives. One of the women in my book groups just on Facebook, basically I belong to history groups and book groups, mostly book groups on Facebook, and then I communicate with individuals and I post stuff and hope people comment on it so I can have some discussions and whatnot. But she wrote, it was something like, I've lived 1,000 lives, loved 1,000 loves. But living 1,000 lives is a very common saying in people that read fiction. But at a certain point, you've lived 1,000 lives, right? Like by the time you've read 1,000 fictional books, you've definitely lived more than 1,000 lives. There's almost 1,000 characters just in A Song of Ice and Fire. And so I think reading, I still like reading. I still read a lot of nonfiction and a lot of fiction. I still read every day, and I can't not read. It's kind of a compulsive, obsessive activity for me. I've tried to stop. I've tried to slow down. I can't I just can't do it. I had some issues with it when I had some of the really intense brain stuff going on. But even then, I struggled through a little bit. It's kind of everyone has some sort of coping mechanism for life they fall back on, and mine is reading to a large extent. So I can't get away from it. But I think it's built up, like the reading's built up so much that I need to generate new stuff, not just consume it. And it's kind of interesting. And writing is allowing me to do that, which is a lot of fun. So I think before January 15th, I'm going to enter another short story writing contest, and that'll be interesting. The issue with success in writing is one, your competition is like gymongous. It's huge. Everyone and their brother and their sister and their aunt and their uncle and their second cousin want to be writers. So out of the 7 billion people on the planet, probably at least 3 billion want to be writers. And a lot of them are actually working on it. There's like 1 million novels published a year in the United States now. It's or 1 million books, I guess, I think overall. Anyways, it's huge. I mean, it's ridiculous. You could not read in your lifetime the number of books that are published in a week in the United States. And to break into something like that is difficult. But winning contests can lead in that direction because that can set you up to where a decent agent actually signs you, and then a decent agent can actually get some of your stuff read by a decent publisher. So that's one way to go about it. But there's a lot of different ways. And to a large extent, all that would be great, but I really just want to get good at writing, the skill development of it itself. And I think I'm on the right course. That's what I feel like doing, is just getting good at writing. And that's what Jerry Seinfeld did. He just focused on getting good at comedy. That's what Jerry Garcia did. He just really focused on getting good at music, the Grateful Dead in general. But Jerry Garcia very obsessively out of that fairly obsessive group on music. And that's what Stephen King did. He just practiced from a really young age, a lot earlier than me, but he just practiced on the skill itself. And so that's what I feel like doing, and I think that's a decent direction to go. And we'll see if I can make some sort of financial model that comes out of it in some way. But the skill set has to be there, and the production has to be there. So those definitely have to come first. And just the competence, the quality in the art itself. So we'll see how that goes. Anyways, I checked this thing before I started recording it, and it recorded like 4 seconds with audio. So then I started recording this one. So hopefully this episode 37 has some sound to it. I guess I'll check before I share it on my Facebook, because that leads to getting weird messages in the morning about having no sound. And I had like 18 views on my video. And then I was like, oh no, now there's, like 18 people, or several of them probably tried to reload it. So I don't know, maybe like 10 people that were trying to watch my video had no sound. Then they messaged me that, hey, you have no sound in your video. So hopefully we avoided that whole thing this time. And I included some of the stuff from last time. And this is just the stuff that's on my mind mostly anyways. These are kind of snapshots of the moment is the idea. And we're on 37 now, though we had to eliminate one, the silent one. I turned that to private. It still technically exists, just no one can see it, except for me. And hopefully, the thing is, they're long, like 20 some minutes. So if I get like later in life, like let's say 5-10 years from now, I have a whole bunch of these, and I go back and I want to watch them, which was one of my major purposes for doing these, it would be such a long period of time to watch all these videos. I don't know if it's really viable or not. We'll see, I guess. Anyways, I think they're still interesting. I'm not going to stop doing them. I guess it could take, like a week and watch all my videos a decade from now and see how that goes. That would be kind of a fun activity, maybe. We'll see. But they're kind of interesting snapshots anyways. So maybe I'll just look back on some. At first, I didn't label them with anything at all, just the episode number, which then I thought about, how am I going to know what I put where, when? The only way to know would be to go back and watch every one. So now I'm at least labeling them with some of the stuff that's in them. And then if I want to look back at a certain period, it could be more interesting that way. So it's becoming more organized super, super slowly over time, which is kind of an interesting development in its own. Anyways, that's all for episode 37. I will see you in episode 38 next time, which I will hopefully make sure I shoot and sound as well.